This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
They got a good team, and they're missing, there's some good players that are sitting in the stands hurt for them right now, and so let's see if you can take advantage of some of those situations. But they work, they defend, and so you got to capitalize on the chances. Cooch gets two early ones, that's a big time scorer, but in the third period, pucks had eyes for us a bit, and it happens, because sometimes you go through stretches where that doesn't happen. It can be a little frustrating, but I thought our guys worked and we defended, and it was, I think, in the end they got rewarded for some of the things they did.
I just love when when your team that you cover wins a game the way the Lightning did, 7-2 over the Flyers, their last game. They take them on tonight. Very complimentary of the Flyers at the beginning. And then it's like, that's a good team over there. But I've always thought if they lose, it's usually, look, we didn't play very well. And then you get into kind of what they did. Konecny, by the way, looks like he is going to be back tonight, although that is, maybe still a little bit of a question mark, but I would anticipate that happening. Yeah. And here we are, 9
Not
in a
the
row.
Other guys, though.
No.
They're missing 3 other players, which, look, no one's going to cry tears for the Flyers. There are a lot of teams that are dealing with significant injuries, the Lightning among that group. So,
you think other coaches around the league are like, all right, we got some injuries. Look what the Lightning are doing. Look what the Lightning are doing.
It's not that. I think that the Flyers have actually been fairly injury-free up until the point that they lost Tyson Forster. Now, he was one player that was hurt. He's a significant player for them, though, and he sustained a significant injury. It's like a 5-month recovery. So, basically, for the rest of the season, certainly the regular season. And I remember when the Lightning saw the Flyers in the first meeting, the Flyers had come in and they were remarkably injury-free, and now it's starting to hit them a little bit. The Drysdale injury, he's on IR, so he's not able to play tonight. Right. And the other guys that have been hurt, Bobby Brink and Drysdale got hurt in the same game a couple of games ago. So it's unclear if they're going to be out. I don't think they're going to be out months, but they are out. Konecny only missed the one game, and he's one of their best players. Let me say this about the game on Saturday. So you're right. Like, when you win big, sometimes you do hear the coach compliment the other team. This game was different than the other blowout the Lightning have had recently on the road where they blew out the opponent, San Jose. San Jose has had a good season. San Jose is in the top 8 in the West. San Jose is above Hockey 500. Yeah. They just got hammered at home by Vegas 7-2. So we see this a little bit, right? Like, a young team, they play some good hockey. I saw they won an overtime game in L.A. shortly after the Lightning blew them out, where Celebrini made a great play to get the game tied late in the third, 6th attacker goal. He's a very special player. I think he's going to garner votes for the Hart Trophy this year, deservedly so. I'm not sure if he's going to win it. If San Jose makes the playoffs, maybe he will win it. I don't know. We talked about that when the Lightning played San Jose. He has that many more points than the next closest guy on his own team, right? Sure. They are doing a lot of good things offensively, in large part because Celebrini is doing a lot of heavy lifting offensively, and they're winning games more than they're losing games. But they're not a top defensive team. They are not. So sometimes they run into these games where, like, the wheels come like flying off the vehicle, right? And they're down huge. That's what happened against the Lightning. The Lightning scored their 7 goals against San Jose in the first 2 periods. The game on Saturday was way different. The Flyers are a much, much better defensive team than San Jose. They are. And the stats prove that out. They come into this game 10th in the NHL in team defense, and that's after they swallowed a 7 in terms of goals allowed on Saturday. They play hard. They play structured. They defended well in the first meeting. The Lightning won that game 3-0. There was an empty netter in there. I think the Lightning defended better than the Flyers in that first meeting. Flyers got very little going offensively. So this is not a game, when we look at Saturday's game, where the Lightning just like ran away with it from the get-go. This was a close game very close game, certainly until Nick Paul scored to make it 3-1, which was about 2/3 of the way through the second period. And it was still a close game going into the third, 3-1. I mean, we've seen opponents battle back against the Lightning. Montreal did it in that game right after Christmas. That was a 4-1 game. The Lightning had the lead in the third period and 3-0 going into the third. And they gave up 4 in the third. Now, that was a little bit of an outlier game, but it can be done. Flyers might have been hurt by the fact that they were missing Konechny, right? They were missing Drysdale, who's got offensive capabilities. But they did enough to make the Lightning uncomfortable at points in that game, where if they had had a really good third period, they could have come back. It didn't happen. The Lightning blew the doors off early in the third and turned it into a laugher. My point is that the game itself was not a laugher. The Flyers are a legit, really good defensive team. Fans were all over Ersson. He's had a tough year. I usually have some sympathy for the goalie when I'm coming in, for the opposing goalie. I'm coming in a moment in time. The fans of that team have seen the goalie when the goalie has struggled. You can look at Ersson's numbers. He has struggled this year. And Dan Vladar, who I expect to get the start tonight, by the way, Jonas Johansson's going to get the start for the Lightning because they're playing a back-to-back tomorrow in Pittsburgh. Vassy will get that game. Vladar has played the majority of the games this year. I'm not sure if that was predetermined at the start of the year. Vladar has outplayed Ersson. Statistically, eyeball test, however you want to put it. So the fans are probably predisposed to not give Ersson any kind of a benefit of the doubt. He didn't give his team saves. But look at the chances the Lightning had. Breakaways,
No
guys
doubt.
in alone, rebounds. So as well as the Flyers have defended this year, they had some breakdowns, isolated breakdowns in the first 2 periods, and they had a whole boatload of breakdowns in the third period. So I felt a little sorry for Ersson, actually, because he was getting the, if it's not the Bronx cheer, what is it? The Philly cheesesteak.
Give it the Philly cheer.
The Philly cheer, yeah. We know what Philadelphia fans can be like. Like they are passionate about their team, and they aren't afraid to let somebody on one of their teams know it when they're unhappy with a particular performance. But it's always easy to just blame the goalie. What I will say about Ersson is this. He didn't give his team saves on some of these chances. But, Brandon Hagel gets a breakaway. Gage Gonsalves, the goalie, made it 4-1. He goes like outside in. He's on his offside. He's got a great angle to shoot, and the defenseman let him get inside on him. Yeah. That's a grade A scoring chance. Mm-hmm. Ersson didn't give his team the save that they needed there, but also the Lightning broke down the Flyers defensively in the third period. We didn't see that as much in the first 2 periods, and I would expect that for tonight's game, the Flyers are going to – it's not that the Flyers are like, we lost 7-2, we had a clunker, let's play better. I thought that they played pretty well, actually, in the first 2 periods. So maybe their mindset is let's not let what happened in the third period happen again. We need to get back on the horse here. We're 0-1-1 in our last 2. They've avoided losing streaks. We talked about that on Saturday. Yep. Let's get back on the horse. Let's get back to playing the way we know we can play, which is hard hockey, structured hockey, in-your-face hockey, forecheck. Let's pin the Lightning back in the defensive zone, which in the first period they had some success doing that.
I would agree. And, I don't want to simplify it too much, but I will. I mean, I think that's also what can happen when the Lightning's talents overcomes the other team. Yeah. I think the Lightning are a better team. I think, does the offense come easier to Tampa Bay when they're clicking? Yeah. And I think that probably was a product of, as long as the effort's the same, Tampa Bay and the other team, most times talent's going to win out, and eventually you're going to break through. And I think that's what happened. I mean, Kucherov had a monster night. Point contributes. And good for Gage Gonsalves again. Yeah. And I feel like I say this every time he has a good game, but I do think it's important because I don't know if his name is inked in the lineup as opposed to being penciled. And I do think he needs to keep that up. But nights like the one he had against Philadelphia reinforce why the Lightning like him a lot. And I just think that's a good thing to see. Yeah. Could Yanni Gord get a goal? Yep. He's no longer...
He hadn't scored in like 18 games, which is surprising because the line has done so well.
And I don't think he's the guy anymore, partner, who's going to get you 20 goals.
Yeah.
I think his role's different on this team.
Right.
For sure.
That was his 6th.
Yeah. But it's still good to see. it's still good to see. So I think from that perspective, a lot of good things. But I do think collectively, that is an instance where the Flyers are playing well this year. But if the Lightning are also playing pretty well and matching the effort for the most part, talent's going to win out. And I think that's what happened. Does that mean it's going to happen again tonight? Don't know. We'll find out. But I would anticipate the Flyers, it gets your attention when you lose by 5.
Yes.
It definitely gets your attention. And they're going to want to come at Tampa Bay. And it does look like JoJo's in net tonight. So you're going to have not Vasilevsky because of the game tomorrow against the Penguins. And, we'll kind of see how that all plays out. But I do think collectively, it was, there you go. You wake up and you see how many points Kucherov has, and you're like, geez, this guy.
He's just exploded. I mean, nobody even. So the only reason I knew about this record that he tied was because they talked about it when he had the multiple points in the San Jose game, which was he had multiple points in 8 straight road games, right?
Sure.
And it was 7 straight road games, and the record was 8 set by Stamkos. So he had multiple points in the game against Philly. I'm like, he tied that record. Nobody even mentioned that because he's approaching another record, which is multiple points in 8 straight overall games, which the franchise record is 9, also set by Stamkos. So, I mean, road games versus overall games, it's not surprising these overlap. I mean, Kucherov is just, he has vaulted up the scoring race.
Right.
He's got 23 points in his last 9 games. So that's Kucherov-esque. We see this from him sometimes, where he goes into these stretches where, points are just raining down.
So
it hasn't all been the power play. I mean, the power play has been part of it. Like, they scored the 3 power play goals against San Jose, and he had points on all 3 of those, a goal and 2 assists. But he's 4th in the league in scoring right now with 65 points. Yeah. Remember where he was 6 weeks into the season?
I do. And you can say this is because of where he is in the scoring race. I actually think you can make a pretty strong argument that Cooch should be getting more recognition for MVP for the simple fact that the Lightning have had to endure more injuries to significant players longer, I think, than any team in the league right now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take away from the year McKinnon is having or Colorado. And a lot of times the best player on the best team is maybe going to get the MVP.
Yeah.
You certainly made valid points, Celebrini with San Jose and the impact he's having, and all granted. But for all those,
that's stark because when you see the point gap,
and that's fair,
he is very, very valuable to that team because he is producing twice as many points as the next closest guy.
It is absolutely fair, and I'm not making the case that he should. But, oh, by the way, have you looked at where Jake Guentzel is for Tampa Bay? He's 2nd in scoring. Partner Cooch has 20 more points than him.
Yeah.
Let's bring this all back a little bit here. That is eye-popping. And, again, Victor Hedman out decent amount of time this year. Braden Point slumping out. Hagel out of the lineup and played well, obviously, when he's
Point's
back.
not slumping anymore, though.
No, he's
what
turned
did
it
I
up.
say? After the first game that he returned from injury where he got
he's turned it up
with a -1, Toronto scored an empty net goal.
He's
That's
starting
why he got a -1. He's been +16 since then.
He's starting to look like the Braden Point we know. But the bottom line is for a decent amount of time this year, that wasn't the case. So if you're going to make the same argument that what Celebrini means to San Jose is more impactful because of who else is not scoring, maybe for the
right.
You can make the arguments that Nikita Kucherov has done almost the same thing, and I think it's pretty impressive. I'm not saying he has to win it. Here's what I need. Greg Linnelli says from Powerline, I need more people having this conversation.
Yeah.
Now, it can start here on the show, but let's spread it. Kucherov for MVP needs to be in that conversation. And look at the point total between him and then the second highest scoring Tampa Bay Lightning player. And Jake Guentzel, by the way, has had a very good year.
Yes, he has.
Now, think about that.
Yep.
Jake Gensel's been very consistent, and Nikita Kucherov has 20 more points than he does.
So I'm going to hit on a couple things that you
Please
mentioned. First of all, Gonsalves.
Yes.
Ben Pierce did an article that's on the Lightning's website about Gonsalves. And what he said is, in talking with Gonçalves said, when you play with Point and Kucherov, your instinct is to give them the puck. He's like, they've really encouraged me to make a play if there's a play there to be made. In other words, hold on to the puck and make a play yourself. We've talked that, Gonçalves has a good shot, and he showed it in the game against Philly. 2 really good finishes. One was closer to the net than the other, but he's got a good shot. So the fact that he is kind of grabbing opportunities when they are opening up as opposed to deferring and bumping the puck to one of his line mates, in this case, Point and Kucherov, is encouraging. First of all, that's what you want to see. Point and Kucherov are encouraging him to do that.
Right.
That's what Ben had in this article. And we're seeing the benefit of it, where he's not producing as many points as Point and Kucherov, either one of them. Nobody's producing as many points as Kucherov, but he is producing. And that first goal that he scored was a big goal early in the third. It kind of opened the floodgates for the Lightning in that third period. And obviously the goal that he scored in LA was an enormous goal, which was the game winner late in the third. So, look, as long as he continues to do what he's doing, he's going to stay in the top 6. I do agree with you that of the guys in the top 6, his position is probably the most tenuous just based on pedigree and the year he's had. But right now he's producing, and I think as long as he continues to do that, he's going to stay there. The notion about where the Lightning are as a team is interesting, because you talked about like Kucherov vaulting up, the scoring chart and how many more points he has than Guentzel. You know what else? I'm just bringing up these stats because I looked at them today, where the Lightning are as a team. So J.J. Moser is now 3rd in plus minus. The only guys ahead of him are McKinnon and Natchez. He's the highest plus minus ranked defenseman in the entire NHL. And I went back and looked. His last minus, and I'm not saying this to jinx him, hopefully I'm not jinxing him, his last minus at all was that at Toronto game on, December 8th. And the only reason he took a minus in that game was that I believe he was out with the net empty. I may be wrong about that. Maybe he was out for the goal that was scored where it was a broken play. Remember that, where it Destu blocked it and it slid past him? That was the one goal Toronto scored 5-on-5. Anyway, whether it was an empty netter or not, since then he's either been plus or even in every single game. Not a Lightning have won a lot of games, but they haven't won every game during that stretch. So Moser's stats impressive. Kucherov's stats impressive. We talked about Point plus 16 since the game in Montreal on December 9th. Very impressive. Guentzel's having a great year. The Gord line has given the Lightning great hockey. So all of this is very, very positive. But the thing that I noticed beyond Kucherov where he is and Moser where he is we enter play today, the Lightning are now 2nd in these 3 really key categories: offense, defense, 5-on-5 ratio. The only team ahead of them is Colorado.
That's impressive.
That's it. Every other team in the NHL is behind the Lightning.
Yeah.
Now, the gap is not as big. Colorado has a big lead on second place right now. The Lightning don't have as big a lead. Dallas is behind them in a couple of these categories. But it speaks to how the Lightning are just, it's not just that they're winning, it's how they're winning games. They're scoring, they're defending, they're outplaying teams 5-on-5. Actually, their special teams have, the power play has improved, but it's still 17th, and the penalty kill is now down to 6th because they gave up a goal against the Flyers, but it hasn't hurt them, as we've talked about, even though they've allowed some goals recently. The 2 in LA, they gave up a power play goal in all 3 California games, gave up a power play goal in the third period on Saturday, but at that point it was 5-1. So, it didn't really affect the final score. So metrically, the Lightning are moving into kind of elite status if they weren't already there. And the last thing I'll say, just kind of checking on this periodically, I'm more concerned whether the Lightning are in terms of their point pace. And right now they're 3 points off hitting their playoff pace marker for this 10-game segment, which they're only 3 games into. They played 43 games. They're at 57 points. They need to get to 60. So last time I said this, they went on a losing streak. So I'm not saying like it's a slam dunker. The schedule is still what it is. It's tough. They're on the road a lot. But they are definitely like munching points. What we are starting to see, at least a little bit, Greg, in the East, some teams are dropping off. And if you look at the standings today, the final 4 teams, or the bottom 4 teams in the East, are now basically at or below Hockey 500. Lightning are 14 games over Hockey 500. So these 4 teams, New Jersey, the Rangers, Ottawa, and Columbus. I shouldn't say below because they're all either at or above, but
Right.
Rangers and Columbus are even, and New Jersey and Ottawa are only 1 game over Hockey 500. So, like, they could still rally, but it begs the question, like, would they be able to rally to the point where they'd get into the range of where the Lightning are at 14 games over Hockey 500? Now, like, if you have 2 ships moving in opposite directions, they're going to get closer, right? So the Lightning have to maintain that. But that is a fairly sizable gap. So as you start, if the Lightning continue to, like, push the pace, just in terms of making the playoffs, the more teams where it's going to be very, very difficult for them to get into the range of where the Lightning are at, better for the Lightning. Now you're eliminating teams, or early yet. I mean, I'm not saying it's happening right now, but are these teams going to start to lose hope even more? Where are the Rangers? Just give up 10 goals the other day to the Bruins. The Devils are in a complete free fall. They're having locker room issues with Dougie Hamilton. Ottawa had this, I don't even know what to make of it, but there was like an internet story that like the GM responded to it, and who knows what that's doing to that locker room. I haven't noticed anything wrong with Columbus, and Columbus just had a win, but that got them to Hockey 500. So let's see if more teams start to fall off the pace, is what I'm saying. And if the Lightning can maintain their pace, we may start to see a little bit of separation in the East.
The metrics you give with those important categories probably speaks to the dynamic season this team has had.
Yeah.
And I think Julian said during his press conference, even when we were struggling to win some of those games, we felt good about our team. And maybe it was just a matter of time before those wins started to happen. So you could make the case collectively. They have been pretty consistently great this year.
After the first 6 or 7 games.
After the first 6
say that in that
after the first 6 or 7 games.
Chat.
But every team.
But he didn't panic.
No. And
he was like, we had some injuries. Preseason was weird. He's like, let's see if we can get rolling. And they didn't sit back. Like, they made the roster moves. They sent down Geeky. They sent down Chafee. Brought up James. Brought up Destu. Gergenson's got healthy. Like, there were some things that, the Gergenson's getting healthy. They didn't actively do that. But they made some proactive moves that definitely helped. Yeah.
But I think, every team's going to have a slump. Theirs happened really at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to happen to any team. But from that moment on, their level of play has been consistently high. And that's hard to do. We talk about all this parity. What does that mean? Well, that means being excellent for a long period of time is hard. And they've done that. It might not have always shown up in the wins and losses at times this year. But this is where you kind of look at things metrically too and say, we were losing some games, we weren't scoring, but we liked the way we were playing, and we felt like it was just a matter of time.
Right.
You always hear coaches say doing the right things. And if you do that, you're going to be rewarded. And I think this is probably a good example of that. This specific Lightning team.
After the first 7 games, they went 15-3. Then they hit a rough patch, and they went 2-6-1 from the beginning of December until like the 3rd week of December. Coop addressed that after the game on Saturday. He said, look, 2 wins and 9 is not great. He's like, I actually like the way we were playing, though. And we had to have faith that this would turn around. He said as much. They didn't play great in every one of those games. They had a bad home loss to Florida in there. But a lot of the other losses, they were right there, right? And if one thing had fallen into place that didn't, maybe they would have gotten at least a point out of some of those regulation losses. Since 2-6-1, they won 9 straight.
Yeah.
So that was a dip, but it wasn't a dip that was fueled by excessively bad play. It was a little bit of like bad luck, actually, with slightly less good play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they weren't playing at the same level as they were when they went 15-3 or now 9-0. And what was the game that turned it around for them? We mentioned at the time the home win against Carolina. They were down 3-0 in the first period, and they fell behind fourth after they tied it. They fell behind 4-3 in the third, and they tied it in the next shift. I remember saying at the time is that this may be one of the biggest wins of the year. In fact, I said this is the biggest win of the year to date. Now, I didn't know that it would be the first of 9 straight that they would win.
It's fair.
But it felt like that was the one that they needed to finally say, enough. This streak ends now. And, you know, there have been a few games maybe where they caught a break. Like they got outplayed against Montreal. They got 2 points out of that game, the home game against Montreal. They could have easily lost in L.A. You know, they were down a goal late in the third. But most of the other games, like they haven't had the upper hand. They've at least been right there with the opponent. I didn't think a lot of them may have had the upper hand.
It's really, this season, I don't want to say it's been a pleasant surprise, but it's really shaping up to be, you don't want to say a magical season because we have no way of knowing what's going to happen. But from everything to how the team has handled adversity, to finding out about some younger players, finding out about your depth. Kucherov is having an incredible year. Braden Point feels like he's starting to find his rhythm. And you have a head coach who, you know, I think more and more people are putting him in that conversation as best coach of the year this year.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like, and all the important things, the statistics you pointed out, Moser's having an incredible year. I mean, there are some things happening here that I think people need to look at and say, okay, are we not including this team more in these conversations? You know, and I think LeBron had something in the Athletic.
Yeah, Pierre did an article.
So he's starting to see it. He's starting to see it.
Well, look, when you look at the standings, the Lightning metrically are near the top.
Yeah.
And they're not as, you know, outstanding statistically as Colorado, but who is at this point? So if it's not Colorado, who's next? The Lightning in a lot of these, you know, instances. And the Lightning have not benefited from their statistical excellence in terms of building a huge lead in their division or their conference. They're not even in first place in their division. But points percentage-wise, they are first. And metrically, they are better. They have been better than every other team in the East. So I think most people can connect the dots and see that. This is what we always talk about. You know, people who cover the league have 32 teams to cover, plus league-related stuff.
Right.
You know, doing a story on this, doing a story on that. The Olympics, you know, is the rink going to be ready? Like, you know, there's a lot that's out there that's going to take the attention of people who have to look at everything. But I don't know if the Lightning have fallen under the radar. I think Coop is getting more buzz for Coach of the Year this year based on the injuries, that NHL.com poll notwithstanding.
Yeah.
And maybe if they had that poll to do over again, some of those writers would put Coop higher.
Always use a good do-over. You just never know. At Volts Radio, if people want to get involved in the conversation. Do you want to mention anything else tonight before we get to some questions? Anything that's lineup probably going to be the same, right, except JoJo and Net?
I would expect, I mean, if it ain't broke, right, Coop tends to keep the lineup the same unless it's due to injury or something like that. Yeah, I would expect the same lineup. By the way, it was a good night in the circle for the Lightning. Statistically, it was their best face-off game of the year, for what that's worth. I mean, there weren't a lot of face-offs in the game. There were, 46 total face-offs.
Not a lot.
It's not a high face-off game, but the Lightning went 29-17. So their percentage was over 60%. So that was very, very positive.
You'll take it.
It was one game.
Yeah.
Let's see. They lost the face-off on the Tippett power play goal, though, which is kind of a weird goal, but they lost the face-off. Mm-hmm. So, again, sometimes it's like, all right, you're doing well statistically in the faceoffs, but the key faceoffs, as Julian said in his fireside chat, not all faceoffs are created equal. He's absolutely right. But, the Lightning have won a lot of games where they've been on the wrong side of the faceoff battle. The other night they were. I would like to see them win more games. When I say win more games, win the face-off battle in more games. I would like to see more games in the second half of the year where they're over 50%. They don't need to be 65 or whatever, but if they can be on the right side of it, I think that would help. That would help the guys' confidence too. But they didn't score any goals off face-offs. Of the 7 goals they scored, the first one was off a turnover forced by Point. So this Denver Barkey is a prospect for the Flyers. I think he was a 3rd-round pick, but he had a sensational junior career. He's 20, so this is his first-year pro. He was a part of the London team in the OHL that went to back-to-back Memorial Cup finals. They lost the first year 2 years ago, and they won last year. Sam O'Reilly was on that team. So Lightning fans were like paying attention to Sam O'Reilly. He's no longer in London. They moved him to Kitchener. But London has been a powerhouse team. They were a powerhouse team the last 2 years, and you can make the argument this Barkey was the best player on that team offensively. He is a legit prospect, but he's also 20. He's learning the game, right? So he has the puck in the defensive zone. Early in the game, Rick Tocchet decided to match Couturier's line against the Point line. Barkey was on the Couturier line. Point picks his pocket, lifts his stick, takes the puck away, 2-on-1 down low, Kucherov scores. They didn't really talk, switched up his lines after that. And I think maybe by the third period, Barkey might have been back with Couturier when the game was out of reach. But he basically got Barkey away from Point and Kucherov, trying to protect the young player. The next 6 goals, and I'm including the Paul goal, which was, there was a turnover there the Flyers had, but it was basically right off an entry. The Lightning got it in. The Flyer defenseman had it, couldn't clear it. Gensel stole it, and seconds later there was a goal. Off the rush or shortly after an entry. So it's not like the Lightning were winning faceoffs and like shooting it in, right? But their faceoff prowess, I think, did help them alleviate some pressure in the defensive zone, checking their faceoffs. Yeah, the second period especially, they went 12-3 in the circle. And that was the period where the Flyers had far less pressure that they were able to generate on the Lightning as opposed to the first period. So that's where I think the faceoffs help. Not so much scoring goals, maybe preventing goals. You know, if you had a D-zone faceoff and you won it, you got out of trouble. So we'll see. We'll see what happens tonight. I would be surprised if the Lightning put up as much of a crooked number as they put up on Saturday. Who knows, though? It was also a fairly penalty-free game. We had the fight between Hathaway and Carlisle. Yeah. But there were some shoves, but it was mostly a 5-on-5 type of game.
Yep. Ryan says, let's keep it rolling. Happy to start my West Coast Monday off right with Lightning Power Lunch. Ryan, we appreciate you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yes, Mark says, is Coop going with JoJo tonight? Yes, he is. Thomas, our good friend from Lutz. It's looking like we're starting to see separation in the Atlantic with Detroit, Montreal, and the Lightning all on playoff pace, while the other 5 are below.
Yeah. Well, some of the 5 near the top of the 5, if they get hot, they might be able to make up ground before we get to game 50. But yeah, what I'm really looking at, though, is those bottom 4 teams are starting to, they're teetering a little bit. Columbus has kind of been teetering, if I can use that word. I mean, they're at Hockey 500, so, you know, that's an 82-point pace, which wouldn't be enough, but, I mean, it's not horrendous. They would need to be better. They've kind of gone through some hot and cold stretches this year. The Devils at one point won 8 in a row, starting with game 2 against the Lightning.
Yeah.
Look at where they are now. Like, they have really come back to earth, and just not back to earth. Like, they've sunk.
And you wonder when, and this will be the tough decision, I think, for GMs of those teams, to your point, who are kind of teetering. Mm-hmm. When do you start to look at acquiring more talent at the deadline or selling off a little bit to maybe look at things differently next year.
I would be, of those 4 teams, I would be very surprised if Ottawa raises the white flag for a couple of reasons. First of all, they were a playoff team last year.
Yeah.
They're looking to build on that. They're mostly a young team. I don't really have a sense of what is going on with them because I like their team and they always seem to play well against the Lightning.
Well, there's issues with their goaltending, right?
I mean, I guess Ullmark is away from the team, but it's recent that he's been away from the team. And their struggles predate him taking a leave of absence. So I don't really know what to make of the Senators. To me, they should be better than where they are. But I've said that for a few years. And last year, I felt like they were where they were supposed to be. And they gave Toronto a pretty good series in the first round.
Sure.
I mean, they survived Brady Tkachuk, I'm talking about, got hurt early in the year. They kind of survived that. It's been more recent that they've struggled. I mean, they got absolutely obliterated by Colorado in that first game the Avs had after losing 2 in a row to the Panthers and the Lightning. And I don't know. Just seems like they can't build anything right now, but does it make sense for the Senators to raise the white flag? I mean, they still have time to make up ground, but they can't just keep playing 500 hockey. If they do, they will lose ground based on how the conference has gone this year. It was another game in which, I don't know if you saw the highlight, Ottawa played Florida, and Verhaeghe had a check against Artem Zub, where Senators fans, and I think many non-Panther fans who follow the league, felt that this should have been more than a minor, that Verhaeghe should have gotten a boarding major and maybe suspended.
Verhaeghe has surprised me at how over the line he goes since he's become a member of the
It was a reckless play.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure. I think they called it a major on the ice.
Yeah.
And then they rescinded it, which they have the opportunity to do. But I looked at the replay. I'm like, that I've seen plays like that are called majors. Did it rise to the level of a suspension? I have no idea. But Zub got hurt. I don't know if he returned, but he definitely left the game. And the Senators lost the game in regulation. So
yeah. Local Nomad says the Lightning are such a tough team to play against 5-on-5. All 4 lines play a lot. They check aggressively and don't dwell if they get hemmed in their own zone. Also, they're finishing their chances.
Well, I'm not quite sure what he means by dwell. I think that when they get hemmed in their own zone, they hold their structure pretty well, and they've avoided egregious breakdowns, which can happen when you're tired. But, yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding in terms of the stats. They've been terrific 5-on-5 this year.
FKA 322 says the team has been playing amazing and seemed downright unstoppable at times. We know this streak has to come to an end. What would you predict as the most likely reason for why it inevitably ends?
Well, they're in a tough stretch. I mean, we talked about this. This is one of the 2 toughest stretches in the schedule the Lightning have this year. Now, when you have a less tough stretch, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to, roll through your opponents. NHL is tough. They could lose tonight. They could lose the next couple of games. I think it's less about when does the streak end. The streak is going to end. I mean, in the franchise history of the Tampa Bay Lightning, their longest winning streak ever was 11.
Yeah.
And there have been 2 other where they've hit 10. The 10 and the 11 came in the same season when they had an incredible stretch starting right before Christmas. That team took off 23-2-1. So they had a 10-game winning streak and an 11-game winning streak during that stretch. The other 10-game winning streak happened in their 62-win season. Right. This one is 9. So it is going to end. The question is, and this is what I kind of offered about the Buffalo situation when Buffalo won 10 in a row and then they lost a game. What's going to happen next? Credit to the Sabres. They've rattled. I think they won 3 in a row since then. They're like 13-1 in their last 14. So the bigger question is kind of like, what's going to happen when you lose a game? Are you able to like push right back and get back on the winning side? And it's not going to be easy where they are in their schedule. I mean, it's not only 8 of 9 on the road, in which they've played, 4 of those road games already. Then they come home for 1, so it'll be 8 of 10 on the road, and then a back-to-back. That's 10 of 12 on the road. That's a tough stretch.
That's tough.
They are going to be hard pressed to just keep winning all of these games. But can they maintain a solid points pace? That's really the question. And even when they had struggles and they lost 4 in a row in regulation, like we were saying on the show, Coop was saying too, like they weren't playing as well, but they weren't playing horribly either. So you figured it was going to turn around.
You know what you start to do? You start to look at Tampa Bay and the teams out of the playoff picture and how far they are to the Lightning. The Panthers are 8 points behind Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of points.
Same games played too.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's the other thing too that the Lightning have in their favor. Look, they're going to be making up a lot of these games here, but I mean, they do have 3 games in hand on Detroit, and they've got 2 games in hand on Montreal.
Yeah.
So those are. I think you're right. If you do lose, when you lose, you don't want that one loss to nosedive into a 4-game losing streak. You want to minimize that, get back to munching points as much as you can. Alan says, we are firing on all cylinders. Dave and Greg, do you think, other than possibly getting a really good face-off guy, does Julian have to make any deals before the trade deadline? I mean,
well, the one year where they stood pat, they went out in the first round. I don't know how much that's going to affect Julian's decision making the 18-19 season. Hard to argue. They were en route to winning 62.
Yeah.
When the trade deadline came and went.
So
he always looks to try and improve his team. Can he do something, though, given their cap limitations? And the last thing I'll say, Greg, before I hand off to you, the injured guys coming back, I know they're going to take a little time to get back into the swing of things. You can make the argument that is almost like adding players at the deadline.
Very fair.
We've heard that. McDonough, Hedman, Lilleberg.
It's a very valid point. The other thing is you don't know how long it's going to take those guys to get back and playing at a very high level. To be fair, I think we are under the assumption that when they come back, at some point, they will be better than what they were showing before they got injured. I think particularly Hedman is, to me, the most intriguing. Because if he gets to a level we have seen over the years for the stretch run, that is like adding let's call it what it is, partner, a Hall of Fame defenseman.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say about the face-offs. I think that's a fair point. I do think they have to be able to play in a probably top 9 role because I think you really like the Yanni Gourde line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're going to break that line up. Now, listen, you can always, if you feel like you've upgraded at a position and you need to make some tough decisions, as Julian said, when these guys do come back, I'm going to leave that up to Coop, and he can figure that out.
Right.
I have maintained, and this is, again, assuming that Julian can make the numbers work, which, let's face it, partner, over the years he has. I would not be shocked if they got another top 9 forward. And you would say, well, why do you think they need that? Is it because of, reservations still about Gonsalves? I just think scoring is never a certain thing in the playoffs. I think they've got depth on the back end defensively. I think collectively the team is buying into what they need to do defensively. And I think their goaltending is solid, obviously. I think you can always use another scorer. It's like in baseball. You can always use another thumper, another offensive person, put a little pressure on that team who's really good with the pitching staff. So that's why I will continue to make that case. If you can bring in another person, assuming you can make it work, and I think the Lightning have the assets, question becomes, do they have the cap space? I would look to have another player of some pedigree who can score. And then from there, but that might be more of a luxury.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I would go with that. Mytho says they laugh at Cooch, but he's making his way to his 3rd Art Ross in a row. He's playing unbelievably well. Looking for his 9th multi-point game in a row.
Well, I don't know if he's going to win the Art Ross this year. He still has a lot of work to do to catch McKinnon. I mean, McKinnon is just having a mind-bogglingly amazing year statistically.
And Cooch may slow
McKinnon
down a
has
little bit.
78 points. So, I mean, Cooch is 13 points behind. You might like Cooch's, what did I say? He's got 23 points in his last 9. Yeah, but you're trying to catch McKinnon, who's also a point-munching machine. And McDavid, who has been like completely on fire in the last 6 weeks or whatever it is.
Guys will come back to earth a little bit. Kucherov's
Yep.
not going to have a tremendous run like he's having now, but we have seen Kucherov carry these games for long stretches, and I think that's going to be fun to watch how it plays out. Vlad says the main Tampa problem, it's how much our team depends on Kuch.
No, I mean, look, that is an argument actually to your MVP argument. I disagree. I disagree. When you are number 2 in the league defensively, and you are number 2 in the league in 5-on-5 ratio, that means that you can win games scoring less. Kucherov helps the Lightning produce offense. He is a one-of-a-kind playmaker. He can make a play when there's no play to be made. He's at times almost impossible to defend. But could the Lightning win a game 2-1? Yeah. Where Kucherov doesn't have a point? Yeah. I'm not saying the Lightning are better off without Kucherov. I'm just disputing this claim that they, quote-unquote, rely too much on Kucherov. Although that is an argument to the MVP, like where would the Lightning be if you pulled Kucherov out of the lineup? But fortunately, they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But they are not a one-trick pony. That's my point.
I mean, but here's the thing, though. If you take McKinnon off Colorado, if you take McDavid off of Edmonton, there's going to be a dip.
Yeah.
It's okay to say that. I mean, that's what makes these guys Hall of Famers. If you take Crosby off the Penguins, there's going to be a dip. Maybe a big dip for some of these guys. Like Draisaitl is probably going to pick things up in Edmonton, but they're not the same. Point can pick it up if Kucherov is out. Not going to be the same. And the same thing can be said for name whoever you like on Colorado. You're going to take a hit. Are they overly reliant on Kucherov? And this is where you can get into the metrics. How much is he driving play?
How much is he responsible for this 9-game winning streak, which he missed the first game, by the way?
Yes.
Because that was the one where he was sick against Carolina.
Yeah.
That I talked about.
And so not saying you specifically, partner, but people can do a deep dive and they can say, well, look, Kucherov is responsible for 65% of the goals that the Lightning are scoring 5-on-5 in some capacity based off of he's on the ice or he's getting the primary assist, the secondary assist, whatever that is. And I'm sure there's numbers out there. Bottom line is if you take your star players out, there's going to be a dip. And sometimes there's going to be a drastic dip, which speaks to Mish's point, though. This team has been able to figure some things out defensively. And that's the part I think that is so encouraging in addition to what Kucherov has been able to do.
By the way, I misspoke. He missed the LA game, the home LA game. So this 9-game point streak has coincided with the 9-game winning streak, which is certainly an argument for the Lightning won 9 in a row because Kucherov has produced whatever it is, 23 points. My counterbalance point to that is, I mean, Kucherov has had these incredible runs before where the Lightning have not won 9 in a row because they haven't defended as well.
Right.
Going back a couple of years. He won the Art Ross trophy 2 years ago. The Lightning had a bad defensive year. This year they are better. Better in terms of their record, better in terms of their road record. Some of it is, yes, Kucherov is helping drive the bus offensively, but also the Lightning are limiting chances. They are reducing goals allowed. And Kucherov is a part of that, but I wouldn't say that he is like the most significant part of that. He is part of a piece of the puzzle.
It's fair. It's fair. Let me go to more of our questions. Enrico says, can we talk about the Stew? He's amazing on keeping the puck in the offensive zone.
He's very strong on his stick. If that's what the fan is talking about.
He's been really good. Ranger says, I forgot if it was his first or second goal, but Gonsalves' goal was nasty to elevate top shelf after handling the puck.
Yeah, first goal.
Yeah.
He got the puck, his back was to the net because he was looking back at Kucherov at the right circle, and then he looked up and he saw he had a chance to take it to the net. And he kind of went outside in and got position on the defenseman right in Sanheim. And that's a dangerous spot. Lefty shot, inner right circle. I mean, it's almost like you're right in the middle of the ice.
Yeah.
Then he lifted it.
You want to see him shoot the puck more. It's the obvious.
Mm-hmm.
It's the obvious thing to say, but haven't seen enough of it. When he does, it's pretty exciting. Mark says Coop has his hands full when Hedman, McDonough, and Lilleberg are ready to come back. A good problem to have, but it'll be interesting to see what he does with the pairings.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, it's also going to be interesting to see how often they go 11-7.
Yeah. By the way, Coop is at 599 wins. We just celebrated his 1,000th game coached.
Beautiful.
Yep. Hopefully it comes tonight.
Mytho says Cooch has 6 less games played than McDavid. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's missed some time due to illness this year, which look, I've had my fair share of illness this year too. I mean, I'm not being asked to go out there and
Sure.
compete athletically, physically, but yeah, I mean, so how many games has Kucherov actually missed?
I think
He's had
has he missed
games.
6? 5?
Kucherov has only missed 4 because the Lightning played 43 overall. He's played 39. I think all 4 have been due to illness.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, the 2 at the beginning of the year were due to illness. I'm actually looking at his game by game. So he missed a back-to-back at Detroit at Columbus. He was sick. Then he missed home Islanders. Yes. That was the game where the Lightning gave up that power play goal late in a 0-0 game. And then he missed the home Kings game. He was sick for that one. I can't remember the home Islander game if he was sick for that.
Something's been going around. We know that.
Yes, for sure.
It is what it is. Logan says, I feel like the biggest goal was that Paul goal. Philly really started to gain traction, and that really stopped their momentum. 3-1 is a lot different than 2-2.
I agree 3-1 was a lot different than 2-2. I did feel the Lightning had the run of play in the second period, though. I felt the Flyers had the run of play in the first period, even though the Lightning were up 2-1. That one key in the game, we talked about it post-game, Craig, was that the Lightning were able to reverse the narrative in the second period. Winning all those faceoffs helped. I just mentioned they went 12-3 in the circle in the second period. Yeah. They played a lot more in the Flyers' end in the second period, and they got rewarded. I mean, Paul's goal came over 13 and a half minutes into the period. So it's not like it happened right away. But it didn't come like super late in the period either. But I agree. It was a very, very big goal. Gave them some insurance.
Blab says, Cooch will never receive the national attention. He's Russian, avoids the media, and comes across as grumpy and indifferent. And he's in the shadow of Ovi, who seeks out the media. That's an opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of that might be valid. Ranger also says, Greg, I think the argument starts with the power play. All the other names on the list, yes, can score goals. No one can orchestrate a power play like Cooch.
For MVP? Is that what he's saying?
That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we are with that.
Well, the argument against that would be the Lightning's power play has not been as dynamic this year because this MVP award is like the Coach of the Year award. It's for the specific year, that regular season. I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit. But I mean, I agree that, nobody can do what Kucherov can do in the power play. But if you're going to make the argument that Kucherov deserves the Hart Trophy because what he does on the power play is better than everyone else's ability to affect the power play is middle of the pack this year.
Getting better. Middle of the pack, though. Doe says, James, while a favorite of mine, hasn't looked as dynamic as earlier in the year. Point finally looks better. I think Gonzalez's presence on top line is helping.
So,
what do you think of that, partner?
So, who had the article on James? Was it Ed? Ed Encina might have had the article on James's relationship with Noah Cates, which I discovered when the Lightning played the Flyers in Tampa earlier this year because I asked James about Cates because they were in college together. Mm-hmm. So Cates was a senior when James was a freshman. Cates was the captain. This is what James told me, but also James had this quote in Ed's story. So it's the same story. He's like, basically, I saw that this guy was an NHL player. He was older too. I mean, sometimes college players are in their, senior year. They might be closer to their mid-20s. I think that was the case for Cates. So he was just a bigger guy. He was, matured physically. He's like the way he carried himself. Like I could tell he was an NHL player. So James basically shadowed him, and they became very close. It was just the 1 year they were together. But Cates continued to be kind of a mentor to James through his college career. Like, should I leave early? He was drafted by Chicago, right? And Cates was like, you got to follow your heart. You got to, Cates stayed 4 years in college, so did James. I'm sure that Cates was a resource for James when James decided to not sign with Chicago and, ultimately sign with the Lightning. So in this article, James referenced, look, if they want me to be a fourth line center, I'm going to do everything in my power to be the best fourth line center I can be, which is try and win my faceoffs, be hard to play against, not get scored on. I mean, he's taken some minuses, -1 here, -1 there. Like, he is a minus player this year. But I think that fourth line with Bjorkstrand and Paul, they've given the Lightning good minutes. I mean, Maroon, when he did the game with me against Colorado, he singled 2 lines out. The Gord line and the Paul James Bjorkstrand line is 2 lines that forced Colorado to play a lot in the defensive zone. So this question about like James being dynamic, I think he still has it in him, but I think he's settling into the role that he's been given. If he has a chance to make a play, he's going to try and make a play. But I think that he's trying to do what the Lightning are asking him to do, and right now, like, it's working. The team's winning. He's staying in the lineup. As he moves through his pro career, might he see an expanded role? I am certain that he will. Because he's got the quickness, he's got the speed, he's got the playmaking, he's got the shot. Cates talked about that too. Ed talked to Cates. He's like, complimented his skill. He's like, he's a great guy. Guess they were in a wedding together this summer too, that Cates mentioned. So he obviously was going to be predisposed to speak very favorably, but there was nothing that he said that wasn't true that we haven't seen with our own 2 eyes about James. As far as Point being helped by Gonçalves, Point's resurgence, if we want to call it that, or his good play after the injury started before Gonçalves joined his line. In fact, it happened, Gonçalves was scratched for 4 games. But since Gonçalves has been on that line has looked very dynamic, and both players have benefited from it.
I would agree. Before we sign off, enjoy some Refrum tonight. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts, and enjoy responsibly. All right, so tonight, partner, we've got Lightning and Flyers.
Yes.
It'll be another 7 o'clock start, which means the pregame will be at 6:30. You and I will have a chance to talk right before the puck drops.
Yes.
And then, of course.
Yeah, and then I have my scheduling, which in case the fans missed the show last week or maybe was it Monday? No, today's Monday. It was last week.
I get them
These
all
days
confused.
are running together. Yes. So my wife has a surgery scheduled Wednesday. It's an outpatient procedure, but still it's a surgery and serious business. So I'm going to be flying home tomorrow, and I will not be on Power Lunch with you because I will just be arriving, I think, right around the time that you go on the air with Eric. Thank you, Eric, for sitting in. And I will be doing the game from the studio. We hear probably with Phil, so that'll be great. Do it like we did it when the Lightning were playing in the bubble. Off the monitor. The surgery is Wednesday. It's an outpatient procedure. We expect to be home right around the time that you are starting Power Lunch, all things being equal. So I will be not with you for Tuesday and Wednesday Power Lunch, and then we'll see how the rest of the week goes. It's my hope that I should be able to rejoin you on Thursday. But I'm going to be doing certainly coming up here the next few road games after tonight from Tampa while my wife has her recovery from the surgery.
Obviously, all goes well.
Yeah.
Thinking about you guys.
Thank
you. Of course, I will talk to you tonight.
Talk to you tonight.
For sure. Great job, as always. Thanks to Steve Ersnick, and thanks to Jared Johnson as well. Thanks to all of you for listening. We always appreciate it. At Bolts Radio is where you can find us on X. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch right here on Lightning Radio.